Hello and welcome to the Inside Elland Road podcast with me, Joe Donoghue, and YP Chief Football Writer Graham Smith. Graham, you said it in your verdict on Sunday morning. There are wins against Preston in November, there are wins against Preston in January, and there are wins against Preston in April. All three different outcomes, and certainly in how we feel after the game. It was a 2-1 Mullering last Saturday, as you quite aptly put it, but Leeds crucially got the job done. A Leeds supporting friend of mine messaged not long after the final whistle demanding an immediate Inside Elland Road reaction. I did promise that there would be piss taking and it would be released on Wednesday. It is Wednesday, so I've held up my half of the bargain, and in about an hour's time, I hope to have fulfilled the other half as well. To help me in that endeavour, I hand over to my co-host Graham. What did you make of the Preston game? Because I thought it was lovely sunshine, lovely result, no head loss at this end of the country. A good Saturday, followed by a good Sunday as well, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would agree with that. It surprised me, I have to say. I had Preston all wrong. I thought they would come and do what they should have done, which was kick lumps out of Leeds. That would have been my plan. Instead, they tried to play a bit of football, and they should have paid a far heftier price, shouldn't they, for that mistake? The Leeds just missed so many chances. They were very good. They were very dominant, and apart from the Preston goal, which was a bad one to concede, Leeds didn't really open the door to them at all. You know, they were very controlled and had it all in hand. Just that one Carl Darlow rush of blood to the head, where he just thought, I'm just gonna go for this here, and came steaming to the very edge of his area, connected with the ball outside his area, and gave away a free kick. Was your heart in your mouth a little bit like mine was, thinking, is he gonna send him off here? Is that a red card?
I did have a brief moment where I thought, I mean, this is probably speaking to my own inherent narcissism, but I did think when he did punch that ball outside of his area, oh no, he's going to make us all look bad because we've called for him, opposed to he might get sent off. No, I did think possible red card, but I think, and I say possible because this is championship officiating after all, but I think to the letter of the law, that is a yellow in the circumstances. Like it was just outside.
And also, it was accidentally outside. He didn't punch it outside in order to deny someone a goal scoring opportunity, which I think is crucial here. But everything within me, every time I see a keeper handle the ball outside the box, I don't know, something in me that just screams, red card, red card. I don't know why that is.
Don't let the intrusive thoughts win, ever.
But apart from that, yeah, Carl Darlow, don't let the intrusive thoughts win. Stay where you are, son. Leeds scored 2 goals. Then they celebrated some more goals. They celebrated Carl Darlow catching corners like goals. It was a wild atmosphere, wasn't it? Like in those final stages when Sheffield United were, I mean, what were they doing? They were doing a Leeds, weren't they? Going to the bottom side and winning, and then chucking it away, and then losing their heads completely. Not for the first time this season. You go to a fight and a Sheffield United game breaks out. That's what it feels like at the minute. They're always scrapping in tunnels and getting fined for losing control of their players. And you get a little bit of a glimpse into why when Chris Wilder instigates a scene like that in supposed defense of the supporters, who are grown men and women, don't really need him defending them. I'm pretty sure they were given as good as they got to the Plymouth players. But all of that just kind of lent itself to this heady mix of joy and relief at Elland Road. When the goals were going in Devon, they were being felt and heard in Leeds. And it took me, I don't know about you, but I hadn't quite got my head in ramification land. Like I hadn't quite got into that, the helicopter Sunday type vibe. It felt a bit early for that for me, but there's this chair goes up that starts at, I think it started like the cheese wedge maybe, and kind of grew. And I'm thinking, well, oh, right. That's what's going on. And then I had my head in this, like, right, I need to keep an eye on 2 results here, because I just thought foregone conclusion. Sheffield United 1-0 up at Plymouth. They'll see that out. I could not have been more wrong.
No, indeed. I think I didn't really get into ramification mode until about 89, 90 minutes in the Leeds game, which was slightly later. The second half was slightly later in kicking off than the Sheffield United game, because I was immediately onto, right, okay, let's write something about this, because the point gap after sort of seeing it on the live table throughout the game, 88 Leeds, Burnley 88, having won on the Friday night, and then Sheffield United winning for the majority of the game. In fact, it was very funny. I said to you, looking at the stats, that in the first 40 minutes, Sheffield United had put up like 0.02 xg, and then literally 30 seconds later, Raksaki scores an absolute peach. And that was just absolutely typical. They were in front for most of the game, most of the second half, and then that equalizer goes in, and it's such a bizarre concept. I think you could go as far to say it's a phenomenon when a goal goes in somewhere else that has ramifications on a team that is playing simultaneously elsewhere. I've only ever previously experienced it once, when it was to do with a championship title race, and it gives you goosebumps, because it starts very slowly, very low, and then it builds exponentially. And I feel you could feel that. Joe Rodon can feel that, or could feel that, when he sort of appeared to celebrate the fans' celebration, as if he kind of knew what was happening. But yeah, having one of them, not just one of them, but two of them, as it sort of ripples around the ground, was very bizarre to experience. But I mean, it's great when you're on the right end of it, isn't it?
Yeah. And of course, it's the advent of smartphones, isn't it, that has made, like, if you can get signal, of course, that has made this kind of a more prevalent phenomenon. Did remind me a little bit of, was it Operation Tango, was it called, when the Rangers fans en masse sent their Celtic pals and work colleagues texts to say that Rangers had gone a goal down, all at the same time, and the roar from the Celtic fans that went up was actually acknowledged in commentary, and then a few minutes later, the kind of bewildered commentator said something about, well, the Rangers game is goalless, so our Rangers are still ahead or whatever. So he was. I don't think you get away with that these days.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it's worth a watch on YouTube. It's very, very funny. A massive, massive roar goes up from the Celtic fans, believing that the title will be theirs. You couldn't get away with that these days because of things like Flash Mob and people following BBC Live blogs, or just simply being on Twitter.
Or the
it's
Why
much harder.
Live blog.
Yeah, or that.
Why podcast.
So it's much harder to pull off these days, but it would be a 2025 reboot of that would be very, very funny. It's just so difficult at the minute because the games are all played at different times.
I've just remembered, actually, just before you make that point, because this is very much about the rippling grounds. I have just remembered that I may have started a mild panic once using a smartphone, in that when a goal goes in, but then it's disallowed, and it's disallowed almost immediately. But so, for example, it's no secret now, after the Carabao Cup final win, that I am a Newcastle supporter, and then I put my Leeds United hat on between the hours of 9 and 5. But many years ago, when Newcastle were in a relegation battle on the final day, I did get a notification on my phone that said Hull had gone 1-0 up against Man United, and Hull were the only other team who could get relegated that day. Newcastle's game was 0-0 at the time. I then took it upon myself to tell people sat around me that Hull had scored. Now, if you were watching the whole game, you'd have seen that it was just a blatantly obvious offside goal. So whoever was in charge of that, of delivering that notification, really messed up, because I then said, it's Hull have scored. Now, Hull have scored put Newcastle into the relegation zone. And that obviously spread around me like wildfire. About 5 seconds later, the goal is then chalked off, rightly so. But by that point, it's already gotten away from me. and I'm having to go, no, it's not. It's been disallowed. It's been disallowed. But Hull have scored has already taken hold. And that's probably one of my most embarrassing moments at a football match. And the people who I was with sort of putting heads in hands that, oh my God, I can't believe he's done that. That's just something you don't do. And for the rest of the game, I was told in no uncertain terms, if anything happens, shut up. Luckily, that game finished 0-0, which meant everything was completely fine from my perspective. But yeah, that has reminded me of that. So hopefully, over the next couple of games, there isn't any recurrences of that. But sorry, go on to make the point you were going to make. I'm sure it's as hilarious and as profound as that.
Joe Fake News Donahue, Newcastle fan first, probably Leeds second, Borough third, probably Virgin fourth. So the point I was going to make is that other than like phantom goals going in, the timing of the games is not going to lend itself to kind of moments like that where Leeds fans will be able to celebrate because Sheffield United have gone behind or Burnley have gone behind, whatever it is. But it is going to lend itself to quite a lot of drama and tension anyway, because you're going to know results of other teams, like on Good Friday. And it's going to really ramp up the tension either way, because it's either going to say to Leeds, you still need to go and win here, to reclaim top spot, or you need to win here to put your foot on the neck and set it up for a potential Monday finish. Monday's going to be largely unbearable, I would think. If I were a Leeds fan, I would be Googling stress relief aids that I could perhaps have about my person to take to the game, or breathing techniques, maybe just some yoga, maybe try and bring everything down in between the games as quickly as possible. The way it's really important for players to get their nutrition and their recovery in between games. They put Sam Byram in an ice bath. They wrap people's legs in those like compression, what are they called? Compression sleeves. And they do everything they can to bring everything down, to ramp it back up again on match day. I think maybe everyone needs to go to Thorpe Arch on Saturday and have a recovery session and then prepare again to get ready again for Monday. But it could be a hell of a weekend, couldn't it?
It could. I suppose what you're proposing on Monday, will it be Monday afternoon? Yes, between the final whistle in Leeds Stoke and the kickoff between Sheffield United and Burnley. I think what you're proposing is en masse yoga on the pitch at Elland Road for everyone who just needs to get a bit of calm and serenity before watching what could potentially send Leeds up.
What time's the game? Is it 5:30 their game?
5:30, yeah. So we'll be in the press room at Elland Road at that time, I imagine.
We will, but we're going to have to hurry, Daniel, because wouldn't it be better for us to be in the pub? I think it's what everyone would want, isn't it? For us to be watching that game in the pub, just in case.
I don't think he's going to be that quick. I hate to break it to you, but having sat in many a Daniel Farke press conference, if Leeds have beaten Stoke after whatever happens against Oxford and it is on the line, I think Farke's probably going to want to talk quite a lot about how good his team have been.
Yeah, Popey could tell us what he said. So if we leave Popey in situ, we'll go to the pub and report live from the pub as things unfold. That just seems like everyone wins then.
It does, yeah. I mean, that's where everyone's going to be. I'm sure we'll bump into those nice gentlemen that we bumped into on the train the other week.
Fantastic.
They you know what, they were good crack. That does sound like a good plan. So, I mean, how are we going to do this? Is it going to be? We're just saying definitively it's going to be Popey who has to stay and chat to Farke. Are we going to draw straws? Are we going to roll a dice? Like whoever gets the lowest number.
No, I think we all just agree and nominate.
Yeah, true. Or we could just go, oh, actually, to be fair, Popey, you are a rights holder with the BBC, so I mean, it's only fair. You can't really desert your responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it, how the mood has changed to one of, this this might be a potentially joyous moment from, oh, this could be all going horribly wrong. But 2 wins will do that for you at this time of the season. And credit to Leeds United and credit to Daniel Farke. You know, he's come in at times this season for a lot of stick. Sometimes that stick has been, I think, justified. I think there have been periods in the season when Leeds just haven't really been at it to the degree you'd want them to be. But those periods have been so few and far between. Maybe that's why sometimes the reaction can be so sharp, is that all of a sudden, you know, have been going so well, then all of a sudden there's a blip and it feels so out of character for this team. But I do think there's a lot of fans that have gripes with Farke that will go beyond this season, even if he wins the title and even if it's comfortable in the end. Well, how much comfort can you really get when there's this many games left? But my point is that he has taken a bit of stick, some of it harsh, some of it reasonable. And I think right now you would want a manager who doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, and backs himself, you know, and almost, I don't want to use words like boring, but it's almost a bit predictable. What you don't want from your manager right now is unpredictable behavior, unpredictable words in press conferences, unpredictable selections. Players need to know exactly where they stand with their manager. When they look to the manager right now, they're looking for comfort, they're looking for assurance, you know, and they're looking for routine. They want everything to be as it was when things were going well. And I think that's what Leeds are probably getting right now in Farke. And I think this is probably where his strengths might come to the fore. And I have to say, I'm a little bit surprised that Wilder has gone quite so, what's the word or phrase? Out of pocket, out of hand, out of mind.
I was going to say let's try and be as respectful as possible, but you know you've made the out of pocket remark, so we'll just carry on.
Yeah, it's just like, I really rate Chris Wilder. I know a lot of Leeds fans don't like him, and there's reasons for that. It's a very unpopular opinion, but I actually think that if you didn't have Daniel Farke, then Chris Wilder would have been a very good manager for Leeds in the Championship, and would have got Leeds. Like he does the whole us against the world thing, and that plays well in Leeds. Obviously, he would have to win the Championship title, the Premier League title, but that's largely by the by. You know, he has his strengths and his personality, and he has his weaknesses like any other manager. And a lot of Leeds fans wouldn't want him anywhere near the place. But him losing the plot in the way he did, and the kind of the narrative and the feeling around Sheffield United is part of the reason why things feel like they've swung so strongly in Leeds' favour. Yes, the wins have done that principally, but if you're going well at this stage and suddenly your rivals have a major blip and all is not well, you know, you've got a selection of their fans abusing the players after their visit to Oxford, and you've got Wilder calling them a disgrace. You know, you've got a general feeling of unhappiness this season and a bit of frustration from him at the discourse from supporters. And it's all kind of come to a head at the very wrong time for them. And it's playing into Leeds' hands a little bit.
Yeah, I was speaking to somebody yesterday, a listener of this podcast, and they were saying, you know, that it's essentially the last 3 games has been what has been threatening to happen to Sheffield United over the course of the entire season. You know, narrow games, but they've been on the wrong side of them this time. Whereas over the course of the season, you know, there's been a lot of games where they haven't played especially well, but they have got results. You know, not like a narrow result in Leeds beating Preston, but you know, killing them in terms of chances. You know, Sheffield United didn't create that much against Plymouth, having watched the game. You know, the first half in particular, it was a pretty dull affair. Second half, obviously, as you know, minds are focused and sharpened into, okay, let's kill this off and let's try and find a second. Yes, there was more in the way of chance creation, but again, against Millwall in midweek, I didn't watch that one, but by the looks of it, Millwall got their goal and then did what Millwall do, and they held on. They were really solid defensively, and that's exactly the position you don't want to be in against the Millwall team, who are in great form at the moment. Oxford as well. You know, Gary Rowett has come in and certainly made them a bit more watertight compared to what they were during the first half of the season. And also at home, which is probably a point that we do need to make in this week's episode. At home, they've won about 50% of their games, which for a newly promoted team is really good. So, yeah, it's all the chickens have come home to roost at the wrong time for Chris Wilder. If I was a Sheffield United fan, I wouldn't be very pleased with the reaction at Plymouth. I know he's done huddles on the pitch and team talks on the pitch throughout this season when they've won and when they've lost. But I feel like at that moment, when it's still mathematically possible, but unlikely, take that into the dressing room. Do that there. If you need to kick down a flip chart, throw boots at walls, all that sort of stuff. But I just feel as though it felt like a major concession having his sort of Phil Brown moment on the pitch, or what's Tom Wagner, the Birmingham City chairman, dressing down his players in the Royal Box in Wembley.
Didn't Jesse do some sort of on the pitch? I'm sure Jesse did it. I'm sure he did an on the pitch.
I'm sure you might have to Google that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I wouldn't be too pleased with that. The public sort of, I mean, Wilder's not going to say it was a dressing down. It looked like a dressing down, and for the purposes of this Leeds United podcast, I'm going to say it was. I then would be even less pleased with what happened as the players are making their way to the tunnel. As you said, in the Sheffield United away end, they're grown men and women. They don't really need to be defended by the manager in front of, two Plymouth players, ironically one of whom being Darko JB, a Leeds loanee. I think Plymouth are absolutely entitled to celebrate in the way that they want at their home stadium after securing a win against a promotion contender, which could consequently give them a real fighting chance of staying up for the second year on the bounce. I don't like the way that Wilder may have, I don't know, I don't want to say lost his head. I'd say lost his cool in that moment, because it like I said earlier, it felt like a concession. It felt like the wheels had just come off, and that's it. And I know that Leeds fans won't like me saying this, but it kind of just gave Leeds the upper hand. I mean, Opta have put a percentage chance or percentage likelihood on Leeds going up automatically at 98.5%. Now, while there is still that 1.5% chance, nobody's gonna count their eggs before they've hatched. But yeah, it felt as though it was a massive sliding doors moment in this championship season, was those last 10 minutes at Home Park, and consequently Leeds being able to sort of withstand that late little Preston remontada, which obviously
98.5%
is what Opta have put Leeds' chances on automatic promotion. Yes, and
the 1.5% is what 98.5% of Leeds fans will be thinking about for 100% of the time between now and it actually getting done. Yes, Jesse did do one on the pitch. He did it after his first game in charge at Leicester, a 1-0 defeat, gathered the team and huddled them. And then he called the reaction to it hilarious and ridiculous, two words that were used quite often during that managerial tenure. One point I wanted to make at the minute for Leeds is that the loss of Dan James is not good at this stage of the season, but it's mitigated slightly by the fact that Manor Solomon is back at his absolute best. That was among the best performances we've seen from him this season, and it comes after a spell. He's not quite ready to admit that he had a bad spell, but he said he was a bit unlucky with goals and assists during that spell. I think we can agree he wasn't at it to the same level that he has been in recent games. Then he pops up with the assist at Borough, and then against Preston scores an absolute stunning goal, just a classic, very reminiscent of the one he scored against Leeds for Fulham in the FA Cup. Very, very, very similar. And a goal that he tells us he used to score all the time for Shakhtar, for Fulham, and then the injury at Spurs has stopped him from being able to do that. And he was absolutely buzzing about proving to himself and everyone else, I guess, that he can do that again. You know, he's recovered sufficiently that he can come in onto his right foot and bend the ball with that force into the far corner. Early goal like that, you think, here we go then. It's Leeds United, 1-0 up at home. We know what happens here. Preston had slightly different ideas, or one idea. They had one singular different idea, and they went and scored a goal. And then Solomon again just stood up, crosses the ball perfectly. Bogle, exactly where you'd expect a right back to be, 2 yards from goal, right in the centre of it. And Leeds are 2-1 up. And Solomon was so dangerous. And he did what Dan James has done so often this season, which is come up with big moments. A little man coming up with big moments. And Leeds have had 2 of them, one on either flank this season. And it was massive for Leeds that Solomon performed like that. I think in a game like that, particularly after Preston had levelled, but even at 0-0 before you score, there's the potential for this game to be so nervy. And if Preston get the first goal, the whole place turns into a bag of nerves. The younger players in the team probably won't have experienced an atmosphere quite like that. So what you need is players like Manor Solomon, who are the best players in the team. You want them to come up with big moments right there and then and just lead the stadium as much as the team and settle everything down. And he did that brilliantly in the first half and just went on to have a really great performance.
Yeah, we've both written things this week, haven't we, about Solomon's sort of return to the fore, return to form. Mine included annotations, yours included quotes. You know, it's a real double act there. So almost like Manor Solomon and Dan James. You know, you're on the right flank. Need I say why? I'm on the left flank.
How dare you? How dare you? That's because I look like this does not mean you can put me in that category. That's shameful.
I'm really pleased with that actually, because that was not planned in any way. It kind of came to me as I was speaking. So yeah, just riffing off each other. Yeah, Manor Solomon's form has been in and out this season, but when he's been in, he's been so impactful. And it is from that very specific area of the pitch where he scored from. You know, the goal that he got for Fulham against Leeds, the goal that he scored for Leeds against Preston, the cross for Tanaka's erroneously ruled out goal at Middlesbrough, the pass for Tanaka at Hull. There was another one, this cross to Dan James at the back post against Norwich, all from a very specific plot of grass. He's very good from that area. So yeah, Oxford, good luck. Try and stop him from that area, but you know we'll see what comes of it, because in this type of form, he is demonstrating that he is a level above the Championship. So long may it continue for the next 4 games at least.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities between you and Solomon, actually. You know, 2 tiny little men with their own specific area of expertise. Small feet, tiny football boots. Probably saves money, actually, because you can get child-size football boots still, I would imagine. He has very, very small feet, and yet can generate an incredible shot and delivery with his small stature.
What size feet do you have, Graham? Just out of interest.
I get mine specially made. So there's not really a size for them. They're so bespoke. Okay. What else I was going to say?
I'm size 10. If anyone wants to get me any sort of commemorative Leeds United promotion trainers, you know, maybe some Adidas Gazelles. I'm a 10.
Yellow Gazelles with the blue stripes. That's what you want.
Hey, I'll wear them with pride. They're a snazzy pair of shoes. In fact, I did have Gazelles a long time ago, which did have a little yellow stripe in them, preceding my Leeds United days.
Before we wrap up the part 1, so that I can get off and speak to Daniel Farke, I would like just to address accusations that I have an agenda against Joel Peru. There is no such agenda against Joel Peru. You might have felt that his all-round performance was fantastic on Saturday, and that was worthy of a high rating. Others, like me, felt like the main thrust of his performance was the finishing for me. And I think, honestly, if you asked Joel Peru how he performed, I think he'd probably say something maybe somewhere in the middle between where I put him and somewhere in the middle of where lots of Leeds fans put him, or maybe slightly closer to where I put him, because he's a goal scorer. And that was not the finishing that he's capable of. And that's what swayed me. But it's not worth fighting about at this stage of the season. Let's not fall out now. We've made it this far.
Yeah, let's not fall out now. Yeah, you do have to head off to Daniel Farke's press conference. We'll record part 2 after that. And yeah, we'll bring you up to speed on what Farke had to say, what the mood was like, what sort of jokes Graham decided to tell, which fell on deaf ears as Farke walked into the room. And yeah, we'll do a little Oxford preview as well. So I know that Graham's absolutely dying to share all of his expertise about the U's from the Kassam. Yeah, so we will be back. There he is, shaking his head if you're watching along on YouTube. Yeah, we will be back for part 2 this afternoon. Welcome back to part 2 of this week's Inside Elland Road podcast. Graham is back from Daniel Farke's pre-Oxford press conference. But we have had a little bit of news, haven't we, Graham? Rasmus Kristensen has officially left the building. He has joined Eintracht Frankfurt. It's a very
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, easy for me to say, yeah. Go on, say Borussia Mönchengladbach. Go on, in one go.
No, carry on.
No. Oh, look how shy he gets. He has joined Eintracht Frankfurt in a permanent deal, which will come into effect at the end of the season, for what we understand is a fee which could rise to 9 million euros or 7.7 million pounds, which I think is a nice little parting gift from Angus Kinnear, isn't it?
Yeah, fair play. Do you think you could play Foo Fighters' "There Goes My Hero" underneath the segment after when you edit the podcast? I know that I remember you saying, I can't remember the exact words. I think you said maybe the best right back you'd ever seen, but I was never massively struck on Rasmus as a player. Yeah, a bit too much celebrating tackles that were fairly inconsequential, or winning throw-ins and celebrating and not really passing the ball. But to buy a player like that, remember when Leeds made all that noise about how they beat Borussia Dortmund to a signature, and to have him for a relegation season, and then, he kind of shows his colours a little bit, runs away, goes out on loan, which was his contractual right, and to then manage to make, or potentially make, 7.7 million, it's not a bad result. Not when you've upgraded at right back for 5 million with Jaden Bogle, because Kristensen doesn't get in this team. That's the long and short of it. And he was never coming back anyway, was he? That I feel like fans still haven't massively, overwhelmingly accepted Max Fober. I think Aronson, maybe a slightly different case, but Kristensen was one of those who Leeds felt was intentioned to stay, and that never proved to be the case. So yeah, see you later.
Yeah, I suppose now that he's officially not a Leeds United player, Graham, you can probably give your unfiltered opinion about Rasmus Kristensen. Would you like to take that opportunity, or would you like to double it and give it to the next person?
I have no real strong feelings either way. He just never grabbed me. It just wasn't quite my tempo as a player. And I'm sure he's a very lovely lad. I remember him saying that in his tiny village, that most of his dad's mates were Leeds fans. Love to know what the atmosphere was like in the pub after it came out that he was leaving to go on loan. One of the release clause gang. Maybe it was a bit frosty for a while in the village. But yeah, off he goes. He's played for Roma in the meantime. He's played for Frankfurt. Frankfurt are going very well, aren't they? Having a great season. Maybe he wasn't a player for such a time as this, for such a club as this, for the Premier League, all of that. And I'm sure everyone will wish him a very warm farewell.
Yeah, I don't think that will be extended to him by everybody. Just a hunch. I would like to address something that I said over the summer as well, with the prospect that Rasmus might return after his Roma loan spell. I said that maybe he wouldn't be the worst option in the Championship, or maybe it was 2 summers ago. I forget how long we've been doing this. I don't think that Rasmus would have been as good as Jaden Bogle has been. I also don't think he would have been as good as Archie Gray was last season. So, there's new information available. A season with Jaden Bogle. I'm not too proud to admit when I'm wrong. Unlike others who may co-host this podcast.
No, it shows growth. It shows growth. It's like every time a flat earther comes over to the side of reality. That's what I feel has happened here with this situation, and you've seen sense. So, he wouldn't have been the worst player at right back in the championship, that's for sure. Who was that poor lad that got absolutely rinsed? Huddersfield player,
Tom
was
Edwards.
it? Yeah.
Tom Edwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know exactly who you mean straight away because it was just so bad of a performance.
Painful. And I've been there. Like, this is no slight on Tom or Rasmus. I've been there, being absolutely rinsed playing right back, and it's a very lonely experience. But no, Leeds have Jaden Bogle, whose ceiling I would suggest is perhaps a little higher than Rasmus's. I think his technical ability is a bit higher. As an attacking threat, he's far better, and he's quicker as well. So, yeah.
He's faster, he's taller, he's better at sports. It's kind of just like who's last getting picked at the primary school 7-a-side game. Yeah, I think that's we've taken this opportunity to endorse Jaden Bogle, but it really is just an incomparable situation. Although we'll have to see what Bogle is like in the Premier League. However, what I will say is the bar is quite low for him to clear Rasmus's efforts from that 22-23 season.
And of course, Leeds have to get to the Premier League first. You're yet again counting your chickens, which is horrible to see at this stage.
Hold my hands up. I'm sorry. I apologise. That's fine. What did Daniel Farke say today then? What did you ask him? What did he say? What was his mood like? Was he cheery? Did he seem complacent to you at all?
He sat down and said, "We're going up as champions, boys." And then he threw his feet up on the table and started tucking into Black Forest Gatto. No, he is never changing, Daniel Farke. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And he doesn't think that complacency is an issue. He admits that it could be dangerous, overconfidence, but he doesn't feel like complacency is an issue. He does, however, see threats and see difficulty at Oxford United. With the extensive knowledge that I have of Oxford United that I was obviously planning to bring to you, I know that they got Will Vaulks, who is one of the greatest human beings that football has ever seen. Like, one of the nicest humans, one of the most selfless people the world's ever seen. He, when he was at Rotherham, I think it was at Rotherham. Was it Rotherham or Sheffield Wednesday?
Rotherham, yeah.
It was one of those two clubs. When he was at one of those two clubs, he discovered the work of Bluebell Wood Hospice, and living not far away, decided to go and offer himself as a volunteer, and then just volunteered. And I believe he made no noise about it until Bluebell Wood were like, this would actually help us quite a lot if we could tell people that you're a volunteer for us, because it's, a lovely story and great PR. And that's far from the only philanthropic or selfless thing that Will Vaulks has ever done. But the other thing that Will Vaulks does is he throws a ball further than a mile. It is incredible. He's got a Rafinha-esque long throw on him. And he, against Sheffield United, it was the long throw that they failed to deal with that led to Oxford's winner in that game for Dembele, wasn't it? And it was responsible for an equaliser against Norwich as well, quite recently. It is an absolute weapon of a throw. So I asked Daniel Farke about that and how to defend against that and why it's complicated. And he kind of talked about the mentality of dealing with throw, like switching on. Do you remember at QPR when they didn't switch on for a throw because they expected a long one, a short one was taken, and then they conceded from the cross? Farke is very hot on that, being switched on, being in place, being ready for restarts. So it's something that Leeds United will have to look at. They've got decent headers of the ball. Rowett's made them a bit more solid, a bit harder to beat, a bit more pragmatical. He changes things in terms of the approach and the formation now and again. They've been going 5 at the back away from home to be a bit more solid, but kind of maybe going a bit more for the win at home. I wonder if they might go 5 at the back for Leeds on Friday night. I could see it, Joe.
Did you just have a minor Farkism there? Did you say pragmatical?
Yes, I think I did. And I wasn't even quoting Farke at the time.
Maybe I'm just overinterpreting how you've said it.
Yes,
but,
I'm slightly sleepy in the head this afternoon, so I can't quite recall. What else did he say? Dan James has risen.
Before you go on to Dan James, I would like to just touch on his answer about long throws, because I did find that quite interesting. I also would like to take the opportunity to coin a new nickname for Will Volks, and it's based on sort of an experience of medieval strategy in battle. I'd like to refer to him as the Oxford Trebuchet.
Lovely. That's so nice. The Oxford Trebuchet. That's the name of this podcast this week.
I've actually got quite a few noted down, so it'll be. I might do like a little tournament tree to see which one comes out on top. But yeah, I think it is something, that QPR goal where Steve Cook heads in after I'd obviously said on this podcast you can't lose again to Steve Cook, and then who goes and scores. Will Volks, I'm sure he's delighted that you've told everyone about his philanthropic efforts again, despite the fact that he initially didn't want any publicity for them. But no, I think from a purely footballing perspective, the long throw is something which Leeds definitely do need to get a handle on, because it's something that most teams don't have. And what Farke said on that was like, you can stop a cross, which is absolutely fine. Like in open play, you can develop defensive game models which will basically funnel your opponent onto his weak foot or whatever. Volks is basically going to have just a free. The Oxford Trebuchet is going to be able to freely load up and hurl the ball at Leeds' defensive Welsh wall.
I've had an idea.
This never ends well.
No, I've had an absolutely brilliant idea. We find out where he lives, right? We go round there, you and me, and we take a sofa. We start at one end of his street, right, and we struggle past his house carrying this sofa, and then we put it down outside his house, and we look all tired and sweaty and like we can't go on any further. He'll see it. He's a lovely guy. He'll come out. He'll offer to help us carry the sofa. We'll make him carry it about 3 miles. He won't have it in him to throw the ball into the Leeds penalty area by the time it comes for Friday night.
Does it have to be a sofa? To be honest, we could just go on Facebook Marketplace, couldn't we, and pick one up pretty quickly in the Oxford area. That's how we're going to be spending our Thursday by the looks of it. Hope everyone else is getting nicely ready for the Easter weekend. Graham and I will be surfing the web and then forcing a Championship player into doing manual labour against their will. Dan James then.
Dan James.
That was the next item on the agenda from Daniel Farke's press conference that we're going to discuss. He is possibly going to be in the squad on Good Friday, depending on how he comes through tomorrow's training session, if he participates. But Farke seemed quietly confident that Monday he would be in the squad against Stoke City.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I was going to say he has risen, but he might have risen. It's unconfirmed. Farke's very hopeful for Monday, I think, but they are trying everything to get him ready for Friday night. I don't know. Like with a hamstring, with Dan James, who, if anyone needs to use his hamstrings and be careful with them, it's Daniel James. And I think they'll probably exercise caution. I think if there's any doubt at all, he'll be on the bench at absolute most. And you have to say it wouldn't really be a risk worth taking. They've got Solomon, Yonto, Ramazani. You've got Schmidt. You don't need to be testing Dan James's hamstring on Friday night in Oxford. Save him for Monday. And they're all huge games at the minute, but it's not like Leeds are 5 points behind with 4 games to go. They're sitting joint top. I think it's okay if Dan James misses on Friday night. They've got the players who can come up with big moments.
Yeah, save him for Monday when he can be resurrected from his hamstring issue.
Correct.
There is actually quite a good, Easter narrative to be had, isn't there, around Leeds' potential promotion. See, note that I'm saying potential now. It's only
Clever.
98.5% guaranteed, but it's only potential. There is a nice narrative. I imagine you might want to use some of that for your verdict after Monday night, potentially.
I don't know if I'll be in a fit state to write a verdict on Monday night. I think my nerves might have been shot entirely. If last weekend's game is anything to go by, and the general kind of topsy-turvy, up and down seesaw nature of this automatic promotion race, it'll be interesting, won't it? Like I'll be tasked with writing a verdict from Leeds game, and it might be the case. I mean, obviously, it might be the case that does it. It's mathematically possible that Leeds could win on Monday to win the title. To secure automatic promotion.
Now who's getting ahead of themselves?
And so that it could be that case. But if not, my verdict's probably going to have to wait until after the Blades and Burnley game, isn't it, to see what it all actually means. It's going to be a strange old day, Monday. It could be a hell of a weekend. Farke almost... It's not that he certainly wasn't hinting at a promotion party or anything of the sort, but he was saying they're looking forward to the atmosphere on Monday, creating the same again that they had against Preston. And it will be like that. It's going to be incredible. I think it'll be one of the atmospheres of the season, Monday, regardless of what happens on Friday night. Because if they lose on Friday night, the urgency will be ramped up so much for Monday. And if they win on Friday night, everyone's just going to be on the cusp of delirium.
I think that they draw at Oxford and they beat Stoke at Elland Road and they still go up on Easter Monday.
So that would be 4 points, taking them to 92.
92.
Right. So you're saying the Blades, lose on Friday?
No, I'm saying they beat Cardiff.
Right. So that takes them to 88. Is that right?
86.
No.
86.
And then
they can only then get 95. But they then play Burnley next and they lose to Burnley.
Right. Okay.
And that means they're only able to get 92, which will be the total Leeds are on
with a better goal
on Easter Monday if they get 4 points from the next two games.
So that would mean no one would be able to celebrate until after the Blades game. That's a horrible way for it to happen.
I just think that's the way it's going to happen.
No, that's fine. It's fine if that's what you want to put out there into the world. What do I think is going to happen? I could see them drawing Friday night. Oxford are no joke at home.
Mm.
They've done well at home. Rowett, he knows what he's doing. They've got some good players. Kieran Brown is out, the Northern Irishman with a ponytail. Northern Irish international with a ponytail, I should say. He's out with a serious injury, and he's been one of their players of the season at left back or centre back. So that's a bit of a blow for them. But obviously, Leeds have got their own injury issues with Stroik, Rothwell not available, Dan James an absolute doubt for this one. I could see a draw on Friday night. It's not optimal. The best thing for everyone involved is just for Leeds to win. But a draw keeps it interesting. But I could see it. I could see a draw.
Yeah. I now can't see a scenario or likely scenario where it goes to where promotion goes to the final day. I just think it's with the fixtures.
I think you're right. You're right. I think that it's like what Hecky said, isn't it? That Blades Burnley game has fallen so nicely for Leeds. Like it really has. Because somebody's going to drop points. Maybe both of them, but somebody's going to drop points. And it does play into Leeds' hands a little bit. You just don't want a Rory McIlroy scenario here where, they could do it this weekend.
Couldn't help yourself.
They could do it this weekend and then, they push it 3 centimeters past the hole and then they have to do it. I don't want to say in a playoff because that idea is beyond the pale, but then it goes, to the next weekend. And wouldn't it be lovely to go to Plymouth on the last day just to have fun? Just to watch.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Watch Joshua Giavogi playing up front and Joe Rodon doing his best Ben White impression, playing absolutely leathered. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Who's breakdancing on the pitch?
Who in this team? I could see Largy. I could see Largy breakdancing on the pitch.
I'll tell you who I'd most like to see breakdancing on the pitch.
Go on.
Keela Vogie.
Yeah.
during the game. Literally during the game. Actually, no, that's too disrespectful because Plymouth are probably going to need something from that game to stay up. So that's, you know, as Farke says, we go respectful but not fearful.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if you're their relegation rivals, you are dreading Leeds being home and hosed before that game, aren't you? You are absolutely praying that Leeds go there needing something still. Because otherwise, under 18s, it is your time to shine. I don't think Farke would do it, by the way. I do think he'd rotate. I do see a scenario where he says that it's been a long season and, players are very tired, or the strain, the emotional highs and lows. So he would couch it in a very respectful way, but I would see him rotating. But again, we're way off down the road. Like that, we're putting the cart before the horse here, and we've gallivanted down the road. There's a massive job to do still, and Friday night will not be easy by any stretch.
No, it won't. But I think the fact that we spent quite a long time there hypothesizing how fun Plymouth would be, and then you've just tagged onto the end at 10-second, but a very Lampardian, but there's still a very big job to do. Kind of shows where we're at. I still do think it's a draw on Friday night. Don't think it's a bad result. Don't think anyone will lose their minds. And also, we haven't even thought about the possibility that Burnley go to Watford and drop points. It's unlikely because they are 27 or 28 unbeaten now. But you look at some of the games that they've had recently. Who was it? The Coventry goalkeeper that mucked up when they won 2-1 there, which basically handed Jaden Anthony a goal. They have begun conceding a little bit more. Who knows? Who knows what could happen?
I couldn't. I don't think I could see Burnley losing at this point. Do you think?
Nah.
Do you think they deserve? Do you think they deserve the title?
No. Nope. That'd be rewarding boredom is what it would be.
You're right.
And it would,
right.
I mean, while it would give us a Scott Parker, the streets, Mike Skinner-esque pitchside interview again, I'd just much rather if Leeds won it. Look at the goal difference.
You would,
aside the expected points table. Look at every single game in which they've mullered teams and only won by one goal. They absolutely deserve to win this title on the balance of how good they've been consistently over the season. Burnley have just been consistently miserly. Leeds have been mostly miserly and entertaining.
They've done both.
That's not taking anything away from that Burnley effort defensively, because 13 goals conceded in 42 games, is it? Or something along those lines. It's ridiculous. That's an incredible effort. See, again, we're getting to the point now where we're crowning champions and saying, well done, but take runners up. Sheffield United could yet come back, but I don't think they will.
It's hard to see. It's very hard to see at this point.
So yeah, are you settling on a draw as your prediction for this weekend?
Am I? Yeah, I'm saying 1-1.
Yeah, I'm saying 1-1 as well. I think a closely contested game. I just think the number of wins that Oxford have got at home since Rowett came in tells me that they have got something. They've found a winning formula there, something that really works for them and their squad. And I think it would be perfectly normal and natural if there was a little bit of nerviness in the Leeds team, because now it feels very possible and very real. After playing after the other two teams have played, having that in the back of your mind, maybe impacts decision making. I don't think they'll lose. I think they'll definitely have a greater share of the chances, but I think a draw is absolutely fine. and that's what I'm going with. We're both going with 1-1. So really hope to be proved wrong.
You can't underestimate a quite priceless, pretty priceless point on the road, is what Daniel Farke will say. 1-1. And then Monday against Stoke City, I would say 2-0 to Leeds United.
I'm going 3-0 flourish.
Finishing with a flourish. Lovely.
Yeah, where are Stoke in the table? That is the question. Are they threatened by relegation? They are threatened, but not hugely. They've got a 5-point gap to Cardiff in the last relegation place. They've got Sheffield Wednesday at the Britannia. I'm not going to call it what it's actually called. They've got Sheffield Wednesday, who have just been a bit out of sorts. They've conceded among the most in the division. I think
they've
Stoke
also not been paid on time recently.
Well, there's that as well. Yeah, I think Stoke get a result on Friday against Sheffield Wednesday. That takes them on to 50 points, and they're pretty much safe then. And then Victor Johansson goes, you know what? Dusts his gloves off and says, I've had a great season actually, and I quite like Leeds. So I'm going to let you score 3 past me.
And then he'll sail off back down to the Potteries on a barge on the canal.
Yeah, I mean, probably more of a longboat situation there, given that he is Swedish. But
Viking,
that's what I think is going to happen. So 4 points from the next 2. Again, that would take Leeds above their 90-point tally from last season, which I think deserves a mention. It's pretty noteworthy. And also the fact that no team apart from Leeds last season and Sunderland about 20 years ago have picked up 90 points in a championship season and not been promoted that year. So don't do it twice, Leeds. don't prove me wrong twice.
I mean, if there was any club on the planet, if there was any club on the planet that could find a way to do that, I think we know which one it would be. But we've been saying for weeks, months in fact, that we thought Leeds would go up, top 2, probably champions. And though they had that little wobble, I don't think we've seen enough to suggest that this team would crumble. It would be the most dramatic fall from grace at this point. It would be a previous Rory McIlroy at Augusta to do that from here. But I think there'll be a 2025 Rory McIlroy.
Yes. Right. That just about finishes things for us on this Easter weekend special of the Inside Ellen Road podcast. I'll resurrect Graham next week after the Stoke game. And I don't know, it could prove to be, we could still be in promotion limbo at that point, or we might be nursing some sore heads. Or we could be licking our wounds after 2 defeats and worrying about the promotion picture after results elsewhere. But that's not going to happen, and we're not going to speak it into existence.
No, but can I just clarify? Are you able to delete this podcast and all previous podcasts in the eventuality of disaster so that no one can clip it and say, you said we were going up?
Graham, I'll delete both of us from the face of the earth if Leeds fail to go up from here. Just to save face. There's... I am slightly concerned that if they do lose at Oxford, we're going to look very, very foolish. But it's okay. It's okay. We're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Why are you panicking?
They won't remember. They won't remember.
They won't remember. No. They'll have more interesting things to worry about, like everyone filing out of Ellen Road and then going, well, actually, we don't really want to go home after this Stoke game.
Yeah.
And then thinking, how are we all going to get into the Peacock? But yeah. Right, that's it from us on the Inside Ellen Road podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll speak to you very soon, hopefully, with a nice little P next to Leeds' name in the championship table. Bye for now.